of our women go through that, verbal. For years, they have been demeaned and said, "Oh, you're good for nothing. Tum kya ho? Tum nahi samjhogi."
From the Garden State, New Jersey, from one mom to another, it's time for Mom's Talk. Here's Avani.
Welcome, Supermoms, to Mom's Talk. I am your show host, Avani, and our today's Supermom guest is the Shelter Director of Asian Women United of Minnesota. Welcoming Sipra Jha. Lovely to have you, Sipra.
Thank you, Avani. This is an honor for me to be here on your show.
Thank you for coming, Sipra. ये organization के बारे में थोड़ा बताइए, Sipra. I can understand from the name itself, it's about Asian women. So, किस तरीके से आप उनकी मदद करते हैं through this organization?
Sure, I would love to. So, actually, this organization, शुरुआत इसकी हुई 1993 में. In 1993, we started out by doing outreach work in the community, raising awareness about domestic violence, जो कि Asian communities में, it is a taboo topic. It has always been, and it still is to a large extent. But so we started out as an outreach program. But then a group of Asian women got together, and we saw that there were unmet needs in the, that needed to be filled. And we saw that there were a large number of Asian immigrant refugee women who were coming from all parts of Asia, fleeing violence of different sorts. Like they were coming from refugee camps, some were just coming as immigrants and found themselves in very abusive homes, in abusive situations. So we thought that we needed a place for them where they could feel comfortable and have a safe space. So that is when the shelter, the House of Peace Shelter, came into being in the year 2001.
Okay.
And we became a 501c3, which is a nonprofit status. We got that in 1996.
All right. I think it's a wonderful thing that you all as a group are doing. आप इसके साथ किस तरीके से जुड़े? Was this in place when you came to the United States, or how was it like?
Yeah, so I came to the United States a long time back. I came in my 20s, when I was in my 20s. And I came here with my husband, who was, going to do his PhD in California. And so we came to California initially. But my background in India, growing up in India in the mid-70s, I studied political science and international law, and women's studies was always my forte. So that was something that I've always been interested in. And that has been my, I always thought about doing some work in this field. But when I came here, especially in Minnesota, I found this organization, Asian Women United of Minnesota. And I was like, this is my niche. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I've been involved with Asian Women United for the past 13 years, going on 14. And I've been the shelter director for that long, yes.
इतने लोगों से सिप्रा आपने बात करी होगी इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के थ्रू, कौन सी ऐसी कुछ कॉमन चीजें हैं जो that you come across that women are facing those challenges or those problems? Which are some of those common topics that are being discussed and are being helped?
Sure. So Avani, being a shelter director of a domestic violence shelter is a really tough in terms of, like, it's not a job that you go in at 9 o'clock and come back home at 5. There are these इतनी सारी कहानियां जो कि बुनी जाती हैं, और इतनी सारी अलग अलग कहानियां सुनने को मिलती हैं कि your mind is boggled by कि क्या हो रहा है दुनिया में. And then you see the pain and the trauma and the suffering of so many women and children. And so what strikes me as something very important, and that kind of it runs through all the stories, is how insensitive we have become as there's the lack of humanity, the lack of, it's not about, it's of course gender violence, and what comes across is also a huge role of patriarchy, that especially in our cultures, that जब तक वो dismantle नहीं होगा, जब तक वो patriarchy dismantle नहीं होगी, तब तक लगता है कि बहुत कुछ नहीं ठीक होगा इस area में. And it is October, the Domestic Violence Month, so I think it's of course we have hope, which we always need to have, but at the same time, and we there's a lot of more awareness in the communities now than ever before, but yet I'm so sad. It pains me so much to see that it is just continuing to grow and continuing, and the cases are becoming even more complicated and difficult. Because there is social media, there is all of this involved as well, so it is becoming very, very difficult.
It's interesting to know, जब आप ये बोलते हैं कि it's even getting difficult now, even after so much of exposure that women have in terms of social media, आपके जैसी organizations are in place, तो ये चीज थोड़ी कम होनी चाहिए मगर बढ़ रही है. तो क्या लगता है आपको, how can we really help them to kind of slow it down? Do you think as mothers we can play an important role in teaching our kids, or how do you think we can help?
Absolutely, and because this is a mom's show, and I want to really, really emphasize on the fact, especially for us South Asian mothers who are mothers of sons, it's very, very important to, from the very beginning, from the very onset, to kind of train your children in that way, to say that there is no difference, that how you raise a boy or a girl should not be any different. And it is becoming very, I'm happy to say that many women that I meet, I see that that's happening. But at the same time, I also see a whole lot of domestic violence in the younger generation, in the South Asian younger generation, especially those coming from, and I'm not going to say generalize it like just India, but even here, young men who are coming on H-1B visas, for instance. And these are, highly apparently educated people, right? But at this point, I don't know if I can say that with confidence that they're educated. Probably they're technically trained, I would say. But they lack education, because the amount of abuse that we are seeing in that younger community, that is, the workforce, the South Asian workforce that is coming here, is incredible. And because these women become dependent on their spouse's immigration status, they cannot work for the most part. They are totally dependent on them, even though they themselves have degrees and they're engineers and doctors and lawyers and, IT professionals. But फिर भी, क्योंकि उनका immigration status spouse के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है, they find themselves totally isolated and unfortunately not aware of how the system works here. And they find themselves in domestic violence and absolutely no clue as to what to do and how to seek help.
तो जब ये आपके पास आते हैं सिप्रा, पहली बात तो where do they find you from? Do they need to Google it? Is there a helpline number where they can reach out to you? And once they are in contact with you, आप उनको किस तरीके से guide करते हैं so that they're out of that situation?
देखिए, बहुत cases I cannot talk about particular cases because there's a lot of confidentiality involved in these cases. But at the same time, I can just let you know that especially I have worked with, I don't know, I cannot count them on my fingers how many women, Indian women and Pakistani women that I have worked with, or Burmese women in the Twin Cities, and especially Indian women and women from Pakistan. All of them come from typically very good families, good background, educated women, highly trained, they usually seek us out. Sometimes they can Google us. We have a website. They can Google us, but we also have our numbers listed on at the embassy in Chicago. So if say a woman is coming through Chicago, they can always reach out. Most of the time, they reach out to the embassies and to find out if there is a place that they can go to. But word of mouth is huge. Word of mouth is big. And a lot of times we get cases from the clinics, women's, the doctors, lawyers, social workers, or the counties to seek help for Asian women. And many times word of mouth, like people have from different parts of the country actually have reached out to me as well. Like, oh, मेरी cousin है, वो Minneapolis में है, या मेरी बहन है, मेरी उसको help चाहिए. So people from all parts of the country reach out.
आपने बताया सिप्रा कि these women are also well educated from a good family background. तो क्या लगता है आपको, what is that thing lacking in them that they allow themselves to be in this situation and get it to a level where it just gets too much for them?
So Avani, you and I come from, we know, we've come from the same kind of a cultural background, I'm assuming. In our cultures, you don't air your dirty laundry in the public. And you don't talk about anything that, that whole idea in our societies of the perfect family image. कि एक वो सोने के फ्रेम में जड़ के वो रखा है कि it's a perfect family. अमेरिका में है, ये है, गाड़ी है, घर है, बंगला है, everything, job है, everything is going well. But what happens behind closed doors, we don't know. And there's such a stigma. There's a stigma about domestic violence. I mean, we didn't even have this in our vocabularies until much later, right? We did not talk about what was domestic violence. क्या idea था India में कि in generations, in our mother's generation, कि you get married or तुम you are educated, you get married into a family, and then that family becomes yours, and you are responsible for keeping the honor of your biological family, natal family, and also the in-laws. That you don't talk about these things. Try and work it out. आपने भी बहुत बारी सुना होगा ये चीज, ये वर्ड जो यूज किया जाता है कि होता है ये सब, होता है सब में, होता है सब शादी में होता है, एडजस्ट करो, एडजस्ट करो. You need to adjust. Now that term adjust is loaded. What does that mean? True.
I mean, right? How much of it is okay?
How much of this can you adjust, and how much of it can you, and what is something, where do you stop adjusting and speaking out and saying, no, I'm not going to take this. This is abuse. So
true.
How do we train our daughters and our sons as mothers to make sure that for our sons that, a woman needs to be respected? And how does that happen? Children don't do what you say. Children model. Children are looking for role models. They will do what you do. They will follow that. They will not do what you just say. Say, suppose you say, "Nahi beta, tumko, you should not take abuse." Well, but if the mother has been taking that and the child has been seeing that over the years, they think that it's normal. Either a child who has been witness to domestic violence for many years becomes, more often than not, either an abuser or an abused. Because that's what they see. That's what they see, that, that they normalize it.
That's true, yeah. They do, because it's okay for them, right? If they're seeing it so much, then they feel that that's okay. It's okay to be treated that way. It's okay to treat somebody that way if they're repeatedly seeing something like that. And you brought up a very good point here, that जो हम कहते हैं बच्चों को, वो नहीं सीखते हैं, जो वो देखते हैं वो सीखते हैं. तो आपका क्या मैसेज रहेगा सिप्रा? What would be your message for the mothers?
For the mothers, I would say कि अगर इस तरह की खुदा न खास्ता आपको ये इस प्रॉब्लम से आप लोग गुजर रही हैं या हो रहा है, रीच आउट फॉर हेल्प, सीक हेल्प। ऑल्सो डोंट एक हम लोगों की बहुत गलत फहमी जो है हम लोगों के इसमें कि आप, और बहुत सारी and it is true, I mean I don't deny that it is a very very difficult thing to leave your home. Asian women usually don't leave their homes until जब तक कि एकदम ये नहीं हो जाता है कि अच्छा अब मेरी जिंदगी को खतरा है. They don't leave until then, and then by that time it's too late. तो बहुत जरूरी है कि ये चीज समझना कि कब वो abuse, अब कब when do I need to speak out, and when is enough, right? Because sometimes physical abuse, so you can ki a slap or a hit, that is visible. But what happens emotional and psychological, and many of our women go through that, verbal. For years they have been demeaned and said, oh, you're good for nothing, तुम क्या हो, तुम नहीं समझोगी, इस बारे में तुम क्यों बात कर रही हो, तुम नहीं समझोगी, या this is not your forte, whatever. But being treated like that for over a period of time, the woman loses her self-esteem.
True.
You become that person ki I'm good for nothing, I cannot do anything. A young woman from Bangladesh, I will never forget that. She came to the shelter and she was in a very, very difficult situation. She had been married, and her parents had spent a lot of money on her marriage, and she did not want to tell her parents because she thought that would just destroy them, that they had just had such a big wedding for her, and she felt guilty. And so when she came to the shelter, she told me, I said, you can do it. We'll work through it. We'll take baby steps, and we'll get through it. And she says, but ma'am, I'm just a girl. And I can never forget that. I'm just a girl. I mean, ये सोचिए कि उसमें कितना उसको ये कि girl होना, लड़की होना कि वो कुछ नहीं कर सकती है. But so that is what, as a role of the mothers, for when we talk about what can mothers do, mothers can build that self-esteem for the daughters and say no, you don't take, and for themselves, and again be a model for your children. That is very important. और हमारे माशरे में बहुत कहा जाता है कि अगर मैं किसी भी औरत से पूछती हूँ कि why did you stay in this such an abusive marriage for so long, बच्चों के लिए. Okay, so that
is one of the other things. A lot of women do stay in that kind of a situation.
Yes, that I stayed in the marriage, but that is not the right thing to do. Because if you're staying in that abusive marriage, or the children, what are they seeing?
True, they're getting a negative impact.
They're getting a negative impact. So move out. It is not good for the children. You are not doing it for the children. You're not doing it for the children, and you're not doing right by them by staying in that abusive situation. So for mothers, I will say that please don't think that you're making that sacrifice, living in that abusive situation for your children. Don't put that on them. That's your thing to deal with. And that if you love your children, if you want to have normal children, because children who see this kind of violence or see abuse in their their mother being, they never grow up in their own relationships. They have a lot of problems because either they don't want to get married, or they don't know how to deal with a woman, or vice versa. All these issues.
True, that's absolutely right. And I think somewhere it also hurts their self-confidence as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's, we as women, we as mothers, we hold this big responsibility of teaching our kids the right things and how to do it, respecting everyone.
A woman came to me. She is a CEO of a company. She's a CEO. She's a highly placed person. And she lived in that abuse for 27 years.
Oh, wow.
And she just recently came out and talked about it and said she wanted out. That she, I probably, it was at some gathering that I was talking about it, and she may have just caught a couple of sentences that I said, and it probably triggered her. And she came home and she called me and she said, "आपसे मुलाकात हुई थी मेरी, अब मैंने उस टाइम तो कुछ नहीं कहा आपको, लेकिन I have been going through this, and आप जो बात कह रही हैं वो बिल्कुल सही. I want to get out of this." And after 27 years, she said, now she got a divorce. And not that we promote divorce. That's not what it is about. It's about a healthy relationship. We want families to be healthy and in healthy relationships, not in loving relationships, not a violent, abusive relationship. That's not good for anyone.
Kahan wo line draw karni chahiye? Where do you think that women should think or say or take some action that, okay, this is where I need to draw the line. This is the point where I need to seek out for help. Because as you said, it's not only physical, it's mental as well. It's emotional as well.
Every person has a story of their own and how they deal with it, and how you deal with your trauma, how you express it, how you find resolutions for that, or how you resolve trauma for yourself. It's different. But I do think that if a situation like that, if you find yourself in a place where you feel like you're being demeaned, or you're constantly being told that you're good for nothing, or there is physical abuse, or there is sexual abuse, I think it's time to seek help. Seek help. Go to someone who can reach out to people who can help you out. Don't be quiet. Speak up and say, don't be in this whole thing कि लोग क्या कहेंगे. लोग तो लोगों का काम है कहना. वो जो हम लोग का, right? That famous song. It's so true. Because आप अच्छा करेंगे तब भी कहेंगे, बुरा करेंगे तब भी कहेंगे. You are not, and we are not perfect. No one is perfect.
That's true.
But at the same time, the moment you feel that you cannot talk things out with your spouse, that you cannot sit down and resolve issues in a civil manner, it's time to seek help.
You said it right. Actually, it's an entire process. जब ऐसा कुछ हो, तो the first thing would be open up with your spouse या आपके relatives हैं, जो भी हैं, उनसे बात करें. If that is not working out, then the next step would be to contact an organization like yours and seek some professional help.
Yes, or seek a counselor or a therapist. That should not be a stigma. कि I'm seeing a counselor. अरे हमारे हाथ में दर्द होता है, पैर में दर्द होता है, बदन में दर्द होता है, तो डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं ना.
True.
तो
माइंड तो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है.
मन में दर्द हो रहा है तो क्यों नहीं जाएंगे.
बिल्कुल. And it's affecting your mind.
Yes, and it's no longer domestic violence is no longer a personal issue. It has become a public health issue.
Absolutely, Sipra. Thank you so much for doing this work. I think your organization is doing a wonderful work helping all these women and building that self-confidence in them. Thank you so much for your time, Sipra. Thank you so much for coming.
It was a privilege and honor, and thank you for giving me this platform to bring some of these issues.